Oh, Andy Liu.
Sir?
End of a holiday weekend, end of Labor Day weekend, and we are back. You have a good weekend?
You know, I'm living in a world right now, Sam, that I get 75 degrees every day with a little breeze. I I cannot complain. I can't. I heard someone at In-N-Out yesterday say that the Millbrae uh, of San Francisco is akin to the Alpharetta of Georgia. I guess that's where they're from. I don't know what Alpharetta is, but our listeners can perhaps help us out by responding to our tweets or in the comments. Let us know.
Yeah, call if you're familiar with Alpharetta, Georgia, call 415-578-0317 and drop a voicemail. I'm curious. I had to look up our voicemail number. I forgot it off the top of my head. I don't have it memorized. I apologize. Oh, good stuff. Team USA lost a game this weekend. We're going to talk a little Niners. We're going to talk, friend of the show, Rich Paul, gave us some material. We're going to talk a little Steph Curry too. Yeah, we got fun stuff. We are less than a month away from Warriors training camp. I want to say 29 days until the 28 days. When you listen to this, it will be 4 weeks until camp opens. A little less for the teams who are playing abroad. That's not the Warriors this year. And very close. Less than 5 weeks from the first Warriors preseason game. It's getting close, man.
It's been one of those off seasons that compared to the last one, I feel like me and you just sat here with shit-eating grins on our faces every day. It was a great time out for us every single day. And this off season, would you say we've been? I don't think we've been like sad this off season. I feel like we've been cautiously optimistic. That's about where we're at this off season, which I generally enjoy, because the Warriors feel like they're serious. So I think this offseason has not had bad vibes. I don't think last offseason did, all the way until the very end, right? But I do think this offseason, I don't get the bad vibes. I don't get it.
Look, the season was disappointing. You flush it, you move forward. I feel like they're going a good direction, but it's like until they play, we'll see, right? And August is kind of like that. You take in what you can. It's a little slow. Got football starting this week. That's getting me excited. Got the NFL back. And that just means, NBA is right around the corner. We're entering the best time of the sports calendar. So good stuff. Good stuff all around. But let's talk Team USA off the top. I don't want to spend too long on this, but they lost to Lithuania. Oh, Steve couldn't get the undefeated tournament. The good news is, if you're Team USA fan, they're still moving on. They went 4-1 in the group. It just changes who they play next round, but look concerning. Did the Lithuania game not feel like every infuriating Warriors game to you, where it's like they don't show up for the first half, they're fouling left and right, and then they dig in at halftime, fake comeback, but you've spotted the team basically 20. I think it was 17 at halftime. It's very hard. You have to be perfect to make that up in a half, and all it takes is them just hitting a couple shots, and it's probably not going to happen.
Yeah, it was a frustrating game to watch. It did feel like a Warriors game last season. Couple things. They got dominated just from a size perspective, which felt like the Warriors a lot last season. And they made dumb mistakes.
Josh Hart.
Exactly. You and I sat here last week and was like, hey, we like the move, but this is what's going to happen. Jaren Jackson gets in foul trouble because that's what Jaren Jackson does. All of a sudden, you've got nobody behind you. So my gripe is really, whoever picked this roster, you didn't think to pick somebody else that could play the 4 or 5. Maybe they had no options. Right? Maybe they had no options. This is what they were going to get. So that's an issue, I think, from a size perspective. The other thing is, and not just size at the 5, right, Sam? We talk about this all the time. Size from a 3, 4, 5 perspective. You just got tiny dudes left and right, and if Ingram doesn't fit, all of a sudden you're just too small. So I think that was an issue. And I also think,
isn't it kind of funny, because I feel like the one differentiator America has from the rest of the world basketball-wise is big wings. Like, you don't see Jason Tatum, Kevin Durant, LeBron James. Like other countries don't produce 6'8", 6'9" guys who are multi-skill like that. And that's really like the differentiator because everyone's got guards who can shoot and everyone's got bigs who can play. And in FIBA, they're less likely to expose because you'd be a little more physical. But the real differentiator for the US is like no one's putting together a roster that has like, Kawhi, Paul George, Kevin Durant, like that sort of like versatility on the wings. And this roster, to your point, like Ingram was the only guy who fits that physical skill and skill set profile. And is he in the rotation? Like he's basically out of the rotation. So it's like, it's, now we're here with Team USA where they're kind of flawed. They're still the most athletic team. They still probably have the best roster there, but they're deeply flawed.
The other thing I think also beside that, because I think they can get away from being deeply flawed, I think they're still the most talented team by far. I think they should still win the tournament. I think they actually should still win the tournament going away. The big thing that's compared that is Warriors-esque is that the chemistry isn't there. And I don't know if it's Steve, I don't know if it's whoever else. They are trying not to have chemistry out there. We still don't see Tyrese Halliburton starting games. I know he's playing a lot of minutes, but he should just be starting games. You're down 20 points. That's not when you start making an adjustment. This adjustment should have been made a week ago. Not just Ingram should have been benched. Brunson should have been benched. I know you're higher on Ingram than me, but we're definitely the same on Brunson. He should definitely not be starting games. They're starting games 18-18 against bad teams. Take away the Lithuania game. They were every single game. It's been close in the first quarter. And you just can't do that. That is just like the Warriors. You have the best player on the court most of the time. You have the most talent, right? You should be playing up and down the court. Instead, they've got I just don't want to blame it all on one guy. But it's just you can't play the style of basketball where you're just pounding, and then you can't rebound and you can't defend. It just what are we doing here? And the thing is, they still only lost by like 4 points. But you just can't. Those adjustments should have been made a while ago. It's obvious to everyone that watches, not just you and I.
Yeah, and like I want to just say this about Jaren Jackson Jr. I really like him as a player, really good defender. I feel like he'd fit the Warriors style, generally a positive impact player. But did you know he's never averaged 30 minutes a game in the NBA?
Wow.
You know why he doesn't average 30 minutes a game? Because he can't stay out of fucking foul trouble. Like it's not that common. And it's one of those things where I'm sitting here going, like, you really gave this guy Defensive Player of the Year? Like it's NBA awards are kind of a joke. Like Embiid won MVP purely out of pity. They didn't want to give it to Jokic a third time. And why did Jaren get Defensive Player of the Year? Like who do you think's a better defender, Jaren or Draymond?
Yeah, right.
How about Jaren or Anthony Davis?
Right.
Or Giannis. Like these are all guys I would rather take than him. That doesn't mean he's not even Bam Adebayo, honestly. It doesn't mean Jaren's a bad defender.
Bam Adebayo would be way better in this. Yeah.
Jaren's a damn good defender. But he's not he's not in that tier yet. You know what I'm saying? Like if you want to say Anthony Davis is better than Draymond on defense, I'll be like, all right, I can,
Sure.
Played better in the playoffs. Can't get mad about that one. But that's a guy who's proven it at many levels. Like Jaren, it feels like a lot of like, well, he's been good, but you're asking him to be something he isn't. And like, I don't know how much I can blame the coaching staff for him not being able to stop fouling.
Which just takes back to the point where when you guys created this team, that's something that should have been known, though, right? That's something that should have been pretty obvious. And maybe they knew this and they just didn't have many options. And I know Warriors Twitter was half jokingly saying how Kevon Looney should be on the team, but I'm sitting here and I'm like, should he not be on the team? Because he's better than Walker Kessler. Walker Kessler is a very good prospect, and he'll be really good. He'll be perfect. Exactly. He'll be good in really 2 years. He'll be perfect for this. But he's not at that level yet, to your point. Bam Adebayo, maybe he thinks he's too good to play at this level. Every single player on Team USA right now is not on that level, though, right? All of those guys are still trying to be good enough to be a star player in the NBA. All of these guys. Whereas if you look at Lithuania, and maybe I don't know these guys that well, but it feels like these guys kind of know who they're going to be. The chemistry is off the charts. The passing is insane. You watch that first quarter, They didn't miss a three. Passing is insane. They know exactly what they want to do out there. It's like those old Argentina teams with Luis Scolari. Reminded me of that a little bit. And it's just USA is always going to be worse from a chemistry perspective. So they try to make up with that with talent. But they do have a bunch of guys that they don't really know how to play great FIBA basketball. And if your name's not Kobe or Dwayne Wade or LeBron James or Kevin Durant, then you're probably not going to be good enough sometimes to out-talent those guys.
You're definitely not going to be good enough if you don't play hard off the jump, which is how it felt with Team USA a little bit. And I hate the excuse of, well, we're still better than them. We just didn't send our best. Okay, then why do we watch sports, period? That's kind of a cop-out, lame excuse, in my opinion. Like, you don't get to say, like, oh, I would have beat them if I was there. That's a LeBron excuse, right? It's corny to me. I don't like it. Anyway, I'm excited to see where it goes because I do think USA should win the tournament, but I don't think by any means it's a given. Right. And that'll make it fun. We got more games this week. We can get into that a little bit. But we should pivot to friend of the show.
Ooh.
Friend of the show, Rich Paul.
Oh, brother.
Was on Gil's Arena, which I enjoy, honestly. They get good stuff all the time. And talking about how the bubble was fake. And he goes, if Steph wins in the bubble, do they discredit it? No, they don't. And I'm going to go further. I'm going to play the audio for you real quick, just so you can make sure I'm not misrepresenting it.
They ain't even focusing on that.
Right.
If Steph wins in the bubble, do they discredit it?
Yeah, you got to.
No, they don't.
We still saying the same thing.
I mean, is that not the definition of rent-free?
Why is he even brought up? Were they talking about Steph before this? Was Steph a topic that they... No, you're shaking your head. That's where I don't understand. That's where it's not making sense to me. Now, it makes sense because Steph is the best player outside of LeBron the last 10 years in the NBA. That part makes sense to me. So I'm with that. But unprompted, bringing up Steph, is that imply that Steph doesn't get any slander? Sam, how do we feel about that one? How do we feel?
I think it's an embarrassing angle to take. That's my take on the matter. I think the fact that they bring Steph up lets you know that they talk about it all the time. They think about it all the time. You're telling me Steph is his rival and his equal without even saying it. Steph never said a word on the matter. He just does his thing, runs his 80 miles of cardio, sets back screens, does whatever he wants. And bringing that up, it's interesting to me because I feel like the LeBron angle has always been he has no peers. You guys don't even appreciate it. He's better than Jordan. He can do this. Meanwhile, you're concerned about Steph Curry. You're saying it without saying it is the way I see it.
And I think it comes from a lack of insecurity. We saw what's his face last year. What's his face? I forget his name. The guy that what's the guy? The other clutch guy that's like LeBron's boy, his little boy.
Oh, Mav Carter.
Carter. That's I don't know what he does, but he came on a pod last year with Draymond talking about how he can guard Steph Curry. Look, man, I'm a guy that talks a lot. You and I talk a lot, but I talk more. Like I say more dumb stuff, and people will always make fun of me. But I will never say, ever, that I can do anything any of these athletes can do. They can do more with one pinky toe than I could ever imagine or my kid can imagine doing. But the fact that he has
You think you can check Anthony Lamb?
I have no shot. That guy would put me in the basket. In the absolute basket, right? That guy would put Mav Carter in the basket. What are we talking about here? Anthony Lamb would cook him. And so the disrespect to say that, I thought was insane. Draymond, another story, he just sat there chuckling. I think maybe he was shocked at what was said. And then, yeah, to your point, coming out here, just why even bring up Steph? And then we don't even have to do the whole Steph thing. I mean, what has been said about Steph the last 8+ years is hilarious, right? Like the first championship he won, it was not even didn't count, right?
The next two didn't count either.
They won 73 wins in the regular season, which is most ever. They went up 3-1 against LeBron and Kyrie, lost in 7 by a point, heartbreaking, but that was treated as like the biggest joke ever. It was like, oh, now you suck. You're a fraud. But they just went up against an all-time great in LeBron. I don't know. Sometimes you lose them. Then they go win and they beat the shit out of LeBron with KD, who, by the way, wanted to play with Steph. But again, Sam, those don't count. Those don't count at all, right? And then he goes and wins that championship against Boston after a few years. And I guess, there was a little more respect there for that one. But how many times have we heard about Finals MVP? How many times have we heard about, is he a point guard? Russ is better than him. Kyrie's better than him. Harden's better than him. He shouldn't have, like, all this stuff. And it's like, to sit here and here's one thing. Here's my final take on this. Rich Paul, that dude makes a lot of money for a lot of NBA players. It makes sense. It makes sense. He is good at selling. He is good.
We got a special guest, Andy. From the Haberman and Middlecoff show. I can speak for the two of us. One of our favorite shows, particularly when it comes to NFL.
Yeah.
Guy Haberman. Guy, how you doing, my man?
Although it's been a few days since the last show. What the hell? What are you guys doing? Are you guys like waiting? It's been like 3 days. What's going on?
Holding out.
Yeah.
Wow, that's a common theme in the area. So, what did you think
Good
of?
to see you guys.
It is good to see you. It's good to see you too. Did you catch Rich Paul's comments that we were just talking about right now?
Did I? Of course.
What was your take on it? Because to me, this feels embarrassing for the clutch side of the equation. I think this is just a win for Steph. Didn't say anything, and they're just letting everyone know how insecure they are about the whole legacy talk.
I know. I love that it always comes back to Steph when it comes to any argument about LeBron versus Michael. The thing I thought was hurtful about it, not hurtful towards Steph, but like maybe I'm crazy. I actually think there is an argument about LeBron and Michael, which I know is sacrilegious.
Sacrilegious.
You sure?
I know. I just say shit on this pod, though. I just say stuff. That one sounded right.
But it's an ESL pod, which is, English isn't first language, so
anything happens. It's all good.
But like when you make the argument about, well, yeah, but Mike didn't have to deal with 365 media, like that invalidates the whole thing. I mean, Michael lived in a different world that was a pretty crushing media world. He didn't have it in his DMs, but when you were a star in the 90s, like they're both big stars, but to say that it's like more crushing now, I think it's pretty ridiculous. I mean, not like Mike could go to the grocery store, not like Mike could go get a hamburger, not like Mike could do any of the stuff that LeBron can't do. He couldn't. So like, I actually think there's a real argument to be had. It may be a losing argument, but I think you can have that argument in good faith. But when you make it about, I don't know, man, Instagram, it's like, it's not even a real conversation.
No, I mean, I do agree with you. If you want to make it a pure basketball argument and you just look at like 20 years and all the accomplishments, and yes, he never had a team that was as dominant as the Bulls for like Jordan's always going to win the team argument. He had a better team. He held them together longer. Maybe he was a better leader, all that sort of stuff. But when you look at him just as an individual player, LeBron's pretty impressive the whole way through. So there is an argument. And to your point,
Montana never lost a Super Bowl.
Right. Yeah.
Mike never lost the finals. Brady LeBron went to 10. But
sure.
But it's interesting to me that, okay, let's pause there, because we don't ever talk about Joe Montana versus Tom Brady in the NFL discourse ever. Is that because Brady's
that
was
a thing for a very long time, though. Am I wrong? Am I wrong on that one, guy? I feel like that was a talking point, at least in the Bay Area, for up until he, gets up to like 6, 7, and that sort of thing.
Now it's
But
this is
also
national.
I think basketball is such a different sport. Like you can argue in basketball, like one-on-one, who would would LeBron be able to beat Michael best of 7 one-on-one? Like the thing with Montana, he was a winner. He was not an elite physical specimen, right? So we're not really talking about the most talented player of all time, which I know was not the Michael LeBron argument either, but basketball is obviously a team sport. Football is so much more a team sport in that sense than basketball is. That's probably why, I think. And Brady's also not anywhere near the most talented, right? LeBron might be the most talented.
I mean, I'll hear it. I definitely won't like discredit him as the most talented player of all time.
Kevin
Yes.
Durant might be the most talented.
Yeah, but it's just a
He's just
legitimate
obviously
argument.
not
That's-
the best. Yeah.
Yeah, but no one's like, Wilt never had to deal with social. Like, so Durant must be better than Wilt. I think what Wilt did was pretty impressive considering he had no DMs. 20,000?
Sure.
I mean,
Felt like they had to deal with a lot more stuff, like racism, like worse racism than players probably have to deal with now. Like Bill Russell. Have we heard the Bill Russell stories?
It's.
I mean,
I don't know. Well, first off, comparing players who flew commercial and did 5 games and 6 nights and that sort of thing to like today, it's just I don't know. It's like apples to oranges a little bit in some ways, but yeah, I don't know. I feel like this is just in general, it makes you look worse when you talk about like complaining about Instagram. To Guy's point, like there's no winning on that argument. Just like stand on your merit. It's like leading scorer all time. Took 3 different teams to finals. Blah blah blah. Like he can stand on his own merit. He doesn't need to quote unquote punch down to like the media says this and that sort of thing. It's kind of low.
I also think LeBron, like the thing about LeBron, maybe a little different than Michael. Michael, it might be silly, but Michael kind of for a while at least played the, I got cut from my high school team. I wasn't the number 1 pick thing.
Sure.
I think one of the most impressive things is when you prove everybody right, not prove everybody wrong. Like proving everybody wrong, I think is a little harder. Is a little easier.
Right.
That's why I think Bryce Harper and LeBron are just incredible, right? They were high school kids on the corner of SI, cover of SI, like all of that stuff. Like, is this the next great guy? And the answer was yes. And, so I say that when like Rich Paul is like, well, Michael, LeBron had to live up to Michael. But when he came in, Kobe was in the middle of doing that. And like Kobe was getting killed for it, right? Being this like wannabe Michael. So he didn't always have to live up to Michael. So I don't buy that argument either. And secondarily, I don't really know how that changes anything, whether he had to play in Michael's shadow or not. I'm not sure why that's a factor here. Like, I don't understand.
Just
Also, he's
creating
his best friend from high school and works for him. So like, I'm not going to Rich Paul for like the middle argument on this subject anyway. Of course, why wouldn't he make that argument for LeBron?
Maybe we can get Randy Mims next or one of his other buddies. So yeah, let's talk Steph real quick before we get to the Niners. We're doing 12 big questions before the Warriors camp starts, and I'm kind of curious guys' perspective on this one as well. The biggest question for the Warriors in terms of obviously they traded Jordan Poole, they're all in, they've traded all of the second timeline other than Jonathan Kuminga. And it's all based around the idea that they're in a championship now window because Steph Curry is one of the handful of players who can feasibly lead a team to an NBA title, right? So my question for you is, how much longer can Steph feasibly play at that level? Because everything about the Warriors revolves around Steph still being as good as he was to be the best player on a championship team. And they fell short last year, but I don't think anyone walked away from last season being like, ooh, he's slipping, he's declining. He looked just as good as he did in the 2022 playoffs. The team just, don't punch your teammate, right?
What's local media going to do without that story for like 4 months, huh?
Right.
What a gift.
The beauty of Draymond is he'll give you something else very, very soon. The man will find a way to cause a controversy one way or another.
I think he's got 2 more years of it.
Okay.
At least. He's going because at least maybe 3. Because he's shown, like you said, no signs. I think what's interesting about Steph is that when I watch him, and I remember feeling this way a couple of years ago, that he came back like bigger, and he's been getting bigger as his career's gone on, obviously. But I thought it was noticeable, like the last few years,
post
in a good
COVID,
way, stronger.
We have that whole. He comes back, you're like, oh wow, you might be 200 pounds.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It shows no sign of lessening his fitness or like putting his attention somewhere else. He got his degree from Davidson, didn't slow him down. So I think what's unique about Steph is it feels like his athletic prime was not 26, 27, 28, right? It feels like his athletic prime was like 30, 31, 32. Or at least he extended his prime 30, 31, 32. Like, I don't know if you guys agree with that, but that's been my perception of him. And that's only based on the fact that I don't think he has looked any worse, I mean, athletically than he looked in his prime. And I think he's actually looked better athletically. So I don't see how you could put it at less than 2 more years, at least, of this, if not 3, other than, human nature.
Yeah, other than injuries, which he's been nicked up pretty much his whole career. Honestly, he's been nicked up a lot. But that's honestly everyone besides LeBron. Everyone has been nicked, and now LeBron's cooked now. Like he's got an injury every year, takes him out 30 games. It's the crazy adaptability though, right? Because he was so quick back when he was 26, 27, but he was so bad defensively. And you watch him now, and he's a lot slower. He's still quick for a guard, but he's a lot slower. But he's so much stronger. When do you think he slowed down? After his injury, right? I think it was after. So 2016's injury, that knee injury, I think cost him. And then I think since then he's just gotten a little bit slower every year. You can see him. Some of it doesn't matter because guys are so scared of a shot for obvious reasons that he can just get by guys. But man, back then you would see him go with this crossover step back where, I mean, he's got like 3 feet of separation versus now it's not as much, but he's also drawing fouls. He's not making the same dumb turnovers most of the time, right? He kind of knows what he wants to do with second and third reads better.
So you think his athletic prime ended when your prime ends at like 29, 30?
I think it's true. I just think he masked it by being so much smarter and still so much more skilled and just getting big. Just so big.
I think it depends how you define athleticism because I think he's a more conditioned athlete today than he was.
I just think he's at his best. I think he's a better player.
Yeah. Well, that would I agree.
We argue about that one a lot. Yeah.
I truly think like 2022 finals Steph is better than unanimous MVP Steph. I think unanimous MVP Steph was more fun because it was like, what is going on? And it was like a supernova out of nowhere. But this he's stronger. He's a little more clinical and he can handle. He's just better at adjusting to different coverages in a way
adjustments don't matter when you're unanimous MVP Steph. The only adjustment is a knee injury. The only adjustment. It's the only adjustment.
How many games in 2016 did we get second foul, 8 minutes left in the first quarter, and Steve Kerr's like, come sit next to me.
So much.
That's sort of those were the sort of things that like I can't think of a game in the last 2 years that mattered where Steph was like 5 fouls and we're in the middle of the third quarter. Like those sort of things matter. Yeah. Lacob mentioned this and it ties to, we've mentioned it, but like, he's like, I tell Steph, I need you to be Tom Brady. And it's like classic salesman owner stuff. It doesn't mean anything, but it's like, in some ways he does feel like the same type of, I'm just going to keep getting smarter and more skilled. And because no one can shoot it like me, I think I can push this beyond the realm of what is normal for a guy playing the sport at my age. And so I think I'm inclined to agree with Guy that like 3 years is probably rosy colored. Like that's like 3 years we're talking about 2027. Just think about that. We're talking about the 2027 playoffs. He'll be 39 years old in those playoffs. So you think he can still play at this level? Then that's a long time to keep going. But I do think it's possible.
Sorry, Sam. I was going to say, but there's a difference between this level and is there a level below this that is also good enough to lead a team to a championship?
Not this Warriors team, unless Jonathan Kuminga becomes. No, seriously, it's not possible unless Jonathan Kuminga is not even Kawhi Leonard. I'm not even looking for Kawhi Leonard. What are we looking for?
Just another Andrew Wiggins. Give me two. Give me two 6'8" wings who can hit open shots and attack a mismatch, right? Like that sort of thing.
Maybe
I think it's doable. Yes, 6'8", two-way player, Jordan Poole. Exactly.
Well, that's the problem is that since Steph is decided not to get worse, part of Poole's value, actually most of Poole's value is less needed. They just need him to be a sixth man microwave scorer. And like all 22-year-olds, that is going to make $100 million. Why would they want to do that? Well, I wouldn't. And I got socked by my coworker. Get me the hell out of here. So, I mean, I'm throwing tantrums all year, which is what he did. Shout out to Jordan Poole.
I do think to take it back to the original question, it's like, how much longer can he do it? I think all three of us feel confident at least one more year. There's no reason to believe this year will be the year that he falls off a cliff. Like, obviously things can change midseason, that sort of thing. But it's interesting to me. It's the most interesting thing to monitor, because like even LeBron started showing signs of declining at 35 pretty heavily. He's just huge. We've never seen a player Steph size be able to play at this level and not really look like they're slowing down. So I don't know. We'll see where it goes. But
Steve Nash, maybe the only one. And
maybe,
Steve Nash,
but he wasn't as good either. So leave it at that.
Who was?
Let's pivot to the Niners.
Who was?
Let's pivot to, let's pivot to the Niners. Speaking of, generational talents, Brock Purdy. Guy, we were talking about this. So as of Monday night, 7:46 p.m., we have gotten no headway on Nick Bosa right now. And am I wrong in reading this that now we're getting into just leaks on both sides trying to apply pressure? Has your perspective changed? Do you think he will sign this week?
I mean, I don't feel great about it. Right? I mean,
yeah.
Like the rap sheet stuff has felt like Bosa agent stuff, because he said now multiple times, if anybody is going to take a hard line, it's the Bosas. As if we have this like 10-year history of Bosas taking hard lines. I mean, they both tried to push the envelope on their rookie deals, and Joey got the biggest contract, in practical guarantees when he signed his deal 3 years ago. It was 2 weeks after Myles Garrett. Sam, you and I were texting about this the other day.
Yeah.
Joey did his 2 weeks after Myles Garrett did his. This is 3 years ago, though. But I mean, that's rap sheet is trying to tell everybody, specifically the Niners, like, this guy's going to hold out. I think what's interesting about it is at no point did I think he was getting less annual money than TJ Watt, who makes $28 million a year. That obviously, right? He's going to get more money than TJ Watt. And the next contract up isn't that much bigger, $31.7 annually, but it's a 3-year contract, $95 million. Aaron Donald, we know that number. So it was an easy guess, I thought, to say 32 times 5, that's what he wants. How much of it does he want guaranteed? I don't know, but I thought it was a pretty easy guess to say, hey, you're going to end up he's going to want 160, 170, but maybe he wants 170. Maybe he's asking for 175, right? Maybe he's saying 30. What's the difference between 33 and 32? I'll make a little more than Aaron Donald. I need to make a lot more than Aaron Donald. Like, the reality is Kyler Murray's making 42. I don't want to hear about positional value. Neither did Kittle, but Kittle took the deal, right? Debo wanted to be paid.
Kittle ain't Nick Bosa. Kittle ain't Nick Bosa.
Well, nobody is. Oh, except both of them might miss. I mean, who knows if either one of them is going to play on Sunday against the Steelers?
Really happy
because Kittle's been hurt.
Classic Niners.
So, well, you have to accept week 1. He's not going to play week 1. So yeah, man. Like,
I have to accept the Niners don't play week 1. But keep going.
That's true. Yeah, that's true. It's a real holdout. He might not sign. We're here. It's Monday night. Now, I guess this is how holdouts go, right? Like, this is the way if it's going to be hardball, it's supposed to go. And with the Niners, you just have to be willing to play hardball. I do think ultimately, my guess is he signs before week 1 and they play him, and we are all holding our breath on every snap, right? Wouldn't you be?
Well,
I mean,
I am, but I also feel like Nick Bosa is not going to be like Debo. He's not showing up to camp fat after signing a big
I
contract.
agree.
I'm trying to imagine Nick Bosa like just rolling in at 275 with like a little beer. Like it's very
coming off the edge, looking like Eric Armstead, slow as hell. Like, what are we doing here, guys? What are we doing here?
yeah. I rehab on work time, right?
Yeah, shout out Shaq, right?
Shout out.
I got
Shaq.
injured on company time. I rehab on company time.
Company
Yeah.
time. Yeah. So like, I mean, I went to a lot of training camp practices. Nick's obviously in great shape, but I do think there's probably just a little bit of a different level of adrenaline that shoots through your body when you're playing in an NFL game versus training at home. So yeah, man, I think it's a little bit of a risk from a physicality standpoint if he plays. But they clearly want the Niners to really hammer home to the Niners. The only way we show up is if you meet our demands.
What do you take of the Niners angle on this? Like Kyle a week ago is like, yeah, it's going about how I thought, or maybe that was 2 weeks ago. They're acting pretty cool about the whole thing, right? Like, and I get that's probably posturing. Like acting desperate's certainly not going to help your negotiation position.
Somebody asked him in the press conference. That was the Tuesday or Wednesday before. That was the week that Trey Lance got traded. Was that press conference? And somebody followed up like, "Oh, if it's gone how you think it's going to go, then when's he signing?" Since this has gone how exactly
great question
how you thought it was going to go.
It is a good question.
Who asked that?
I mean, we all thought it was going to be like everyone kind of has a belief of what the Bosa negotiation tactic's going to be, and this is it. But I certainly thought they would have reached a conclusion by now.
Two contract questions, and one from the chat. I think this is great from Brian. He says it sounds like they're $2 to $3 million a year apart. What is the cap issue that would stop the Niners from paying it? That's one. And then two, fair, whatever. But is Bosa unfair for asking for this, or is this completely fair for him to get? I mean, whatever he gets is fair, but like, is this a crazy ask from him? I guess.
Well, I don't know what the ask. Like, what's the ask, right?
We assume it's what you said.
170, right? So like, what 2 million more? Let's say 32, and he wants 34. So what's 34?
It's 170.
170, yeah.
And they're like, $3 million. They can't just
160. And they're like, hey, we'll make it. How about 160? I mean, we talk so much about it. No one knows these guys, the Eagles, Howie Roseman, the Parag, like the cap. I mean, what did John Lynch
sure
say
you want that? It's going to
like
cost you Armstead next to you. Yeah. That sort of like, yeah.
Yeah. John Lynch. And the answer is, your problem. I mean, John Lynch said a while ago they budgeted for this. So I don't know, what did they budget for? He said they budgeted for this. So if you budget for it, and you had to have budgeted for at least $30 million a year, I would think. At least you could argue. You look, Nick. Aaron got $32 million a year, but it was a 3-year contract. And Nick would argue, yeah, and he was about to retire. I'm in my prime.
That's a fair.
So to Sam, like to your question, is it fair? I think it's fair for him to say I should be paid more than Aaron Donald. We could debate who's better, but I think it's a very fair position for Nick Bosa.
How many times do you think they've thrown Javon Hargrave's name out there going, you just gave him $80 million out of nowhere. Could have just paid me, you know?
Yeah. I mean, I would imagine they throw Ross Stripling's name out, Conforto's name out, Haniger. Like that's Mania. That's $40 million right there.
Dude, that is.
He's like,
you just
those
made
two guys.
Just pissed me off.
He's like, Jock's making 20.
For what? The guy can't pick up a ball in the outfield. He's so fat. Like, what is going on out there? Dude, the Giants do nothing but piss me off. At least the Niners, I think, they'll still be fun to watch until I get angry in game one. But
does any of this Bosa stuff matter? Is my other question for you is like, if he signs, and even if he misses week one, does it change your feeling in terms of this team's long-term outlook for the season?
No. They might lose week one with him. If he'd been here for a month, they might lose to the Steelers on the road. Yeah. They might beat the Steelers without him. I mean, Steve Wilkes is going to blitz the doors off of Kenny Pickett if Nick Bosa is not there. So, no. If he shows up, I mean, like with every sports question, right? It's like, well, if he shows up and is healthy, he's been hurt multiple times. Does it have to do with how much advanced practice he gets? I don't think so. So, no. Yeah, it doesn't change it. If he shows up, then it's like, what were we all yelling about all this time, right? Just like, like if at the end of the year Purdy plays 17 games, like you remember all that time we spent on Darnold and Lance, and then Darnold goes off and like signs with the Rams, and it's just over, and Purdy's just the quarterback. But we don't know the future, so right now you've got to prepare. And I mean, I know the NFC is wide open, but if I'm them, and I think one thing that the Niners have underrated. I don't know if Niner fans are aware of this. How annoyed the Eagles are with them. I think the Eagles are so annoyed with the 49ers. I think Philadelphia as a town has had it hearing about the NFC Championship game. And yeah, I think
I did pick up on that.
My point is you want that game at home if you play them in the playoffs. And one little thing, man, I've got a buddy in Philly, Ed. He texts me non-stop. I guess one of the Eagles blogs. You guys saw that Niners fight in the In-N-Out the other day? Andy, you might have been there at that In-N-Out that night. But he texted me. One of the Eagles blogs took it and basically, I mean, it's just like they are so. My point being, every win and loss is going to matter when it comes to Philly. Yeah, and you want the 1 seed, and not having Nick might cost you the 1 seed.
Yeah, that's really all that. I mean, that is what like the Niners winning another playoff game and losing to the Eagles is not going to cut it this season. It's disappointing. It's not good enough. It's funny because the Eagles fans being mad about that reminds us, we were just talking about Steph being disrespected, which Paul didn't mention it. It reminds a little bit of the Warriors winning 15 in 14-15. And all everyone would talk about was that Kyrie was injured, right? And that's what everyone would say. And the Eagles didn't win the championship, but Warriors fans, me included, we're getting pretty riled up after that.
I can understand Eagle fans being annoyed at
which is
McCaffrey, Kittle, Warner, every one of them doing like media during Super
Debo
Bowl week, being like, yeah, exactly.
It is annoying. I thought it was annoying. I was like, yo, you lost. I don't really care. I don't want to hear it. You guys got your ass whooped. So whatever, dude. Go find a quarterback and figure it out next year.
We all know what happened, but you could have just kept it to yourself a little bit.
All of them came out. All of them.
I mean, yeah, like both things are true. Like I don't think they were saying anything crazy, but at the same time, I would take it the same way if I was the Eagles. Mm. The Eagles didn't go out. That's the one thing. No Eagles players were like, oh, we were going to attack Ambry Thomas all day. Like, like they didn't. Mm-hmm. I don't know. I think it's an incredible matchup, and every game is going to matter. And here's the thing: they're going to lose some games that come out of left field because the Niners always do that, right? Lose a couple of games that you're like, how did they just lose to the Falcons?
Everybody's on it this season. I mean, it's like, aren't the Steelers? I mean, they might end up being favored by the time Sunday comes around. At least it's going to be not a surprise if they lose that game. But I don't know. I'm still bullish on the offense. I mean, Kittle's not going to play. I don't think it matters too much because they've got some dudes that they can throw to. But this offense looks incredible. So I don't know. I'm still bought in.
Is this the biggest holdout in recent Bay Area sports history?
It has to be because holdouts are really only a thing.
They don't happen
in football.
But I mean, has there ever been even all the Warriors contracts have been pretty straightforward, right?
Sure.
All the Niners contracts at this point have been pretty straightforward. I guess Trent Williams kind of almost left.
Yeah, there's no drama with the Warriors. I mean, the Giants don't sign anyone, so it doesn't matter.
Aaron Judge, Carlos Correa, both those signings for Trump.
When the holdout though, that was a different.
Yeah, Correa's pretty bad. Correa's pretty bad.
Tour in Lafayette, California, when he gets his contract pulled. That's rough. I always liked him. The mental image. He's like on a house tour, just hearing like the Giants have pulled their contract. It's kind of awkward.
I mean, so you guys think Bosa signs this week or no?
Sam was telling me for weeks. He was making fun of me for being worried. And, I don't know. I was like, I think this Niners team is just worrisome overall. Honestly, my big thing is I want to watch this team win a championship. They're the only team of the three Bay Area teams I've watched that haven't won a championship. in
You're
my
so young.
lifetime. In my lifetime, I mean, Steve Young was one in my lifetime, but I was whatever years old I was. They're the ones that are super talented. So you just, I can't do yes, they beat Dallas again in the postseason and lose to the Eagles, or they make it to the Super Bowl and lose to Mahomes. I can't do that again. Enough, right? It's just, they're not good enough. They haven't been good enough every fucking season. They don't have a quarterback. Their coach has no idea how to figure out what a quarterback does. So every year I'm watching this. It is frustrating. I've watched a Giants team that won 3 titles, even though they sucked. I don't know how they did it. They won 3. Then I watched the greatest basketball team ever with Steph and KD. And I got to go back and I watch the Niners, and every season they kill me, whether it's Harbaugh or whether it's the Harbaugh stuff is funny, by the way. Whether it's Harbaugh or whether it's Shanahan, they troll me every season. And this season feels like it's going to go the same route. Like, what is okay, guys, let me ask you this. What is how confident are you that the Niners can actually win a Super Bowl? Not make the Super Bowl, not win a playoff game, but win a Super Bowl.
On a scale of 1 to 10, I'd say I am a 6.5.
Oh, it's actually pretty high.
Is that high or low?
I feel
You think that's high? It feels low to me.
Hmm.
I mean, they're like one of the 5 teams, But Brock, all I know is when they played Patrick Mahomes last year, they got their asses kicked.
Yeah.
So they're good enough to win the NFC. I'm a 10 that they're good enough to win the NFC.
Mm-hmm.
So I think by that token, a 6.5 is kind of low, or 6 is kind of low, right? Because then it's like, all right, Burrow, Allen, Mahomes. Herbert,
They could have beat
Yeah,
Burrow.
I'm really
Burrow.
only heard
That's
about
tough.
Mahomes in that scenario.
You're not asking me,
so-
you're not asking me, will they? You're just saying, are they good enough? And I'm saying, I think a 6 or 6.5 is kind of low because it feels like a pretty universal opinion that they're one of the most talented teams in the NFL.
How disappointing would it be if this era of the Niners goes away without winning a Super Bowl? I think that's the more interesting one here. More disappointing than the Harbaugh teams? Like, because how many years do they realistically have? We just talked about Steph, but it's like, I don't know. Football is one of those things where like it closes really quick.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah, I mean, unless Purdy is a guy worthy of a $50 million annual contract, right?
Might
In
be 2 years, right?
Then the window opens again.
Yeah.
The Harbaugh one was pretty. I mean, both teams were in the Super Bowl. The difference, the Niners were getting handed it to them until the lights went out.
Yeah.
This
Their
team
favorite to win that
was
game.
beating the Chiefs. It's a good question. I mean, the tough part with it is with Jim, there was an expiration date. With Kyle, I don't know, is he just not going to win a championship? He'll be here the next 12 years, or is Jed going to fire him because he doesn't win a championship?
How can you fire him?
I don't think
right?
so. Well, he's not going to, and he shouldn't.
Yeah.
So does that mean Shanahan has a falling out with John Lynch and says, I'm out of here? But then John's like, well, I'm going to go do TV. So, you know what I mean? Like how it ends. The Harbaugh one, in hindsight, was like, yeah, that's how that one should have ended.
Yeah, it's one of those where you look at it afterwards, you're like, yeah, should have seen that coming exactly the way it came.
And maybe after this ends, however it ends, whenever it ends, it'll make sense. But
feels like Niner fans.
I think this one would be.
There's not as much love for Kyle.
I think Harbaugh is easy for fans to love. He was here like 4 years. So he didn't wear out his. But even then, I think. I don't know. I mean, Kyle he's had some highs, he's had some lows. He came with baggage. Jim did not come with baggage. Kyle came with the Super Bowl loss, right?
Also, it got leaked. The owner was unhappy with him before it truly went sour on the field. So it became a Jed York discussion more than a does this coach have limitations discussion.
Easy side to take. Also, he saved Alex Smith, which was like a lovable story.
Yeah.
I remember the previous decade of Niners football, which was very rough.
Great quotes. Harbaugh had great quotes. He just says weird shit that I don't even know what it means.
What did he say today? Me fence? There's no offense. There's no
Defense.
defense.
There's no
defense.
offense. There's no defense. There's we fence. I appreciate
You see
that.
the play
He's
they
going
ran
in-
for him?
Yes.
Was it 4? What did they do? They put up the 4. I didn't know Michigan was the favorites to win national championship in college. I didn't know that's what Harbaugh was doing in college football. It's unbelievable.
Oh, yeah.
I had no idea.
Which I don't think I hope I'm wrong because I would love to see him win a championship, but I just don't think his teams. I think his teams
No.
are always going to do something wrong in the biggest game.
I've seen it.
That's
I've
my
seen it.
feeling.
We've seen it.
But he obviously has infected them with his craziness. They ran that play. I mean, that's a very Harbaugh thing to do.
I love Jim. Hey, by the
know.
time his
He's
tenure was
amazing.
over as a Niner, like the Niners couldn't run a play without a delay game. But I loved him. I thought
They started the Super Bowl. They started the Super Bowl with an illegal formation.
Oh my
How's that
God.
possible? He's been 2 weeks
Oh my
practicing to
God.
play.
You know, your point. I like that one. Whatever it is about a Jim Harbaugh team, it always feels like they'll mess up in the big game. I feel that way about Kyle too. So that's back-to-back coaches that just you feel like are always going to choke. They're just going to do something stupid. You know what I mean?
But it's you can
It
easily
hurts.
argue the counter. Like look at all the big games they won. You know, like how could
Yeah,
you
that's
argue that? But we're not talking about games. We're talking about like all the games you have to string together in order to win a championship.
Yeah.
And
Reed just
Kyle
won.
hurts himself. Great quarterbacks are like they help you erase mistakes. And if you don't have one, your margin for error is really thin. Andy Reid's a championship coach. He added Patrick Mahomes and like won a championship.
I mean, wasn't he basically the same thing as Kyle?
Feels like
Pre-Mahomes?
it. Yeah, feels like it.
Genius
McNabb, though.
offensive mind.
He won more.
Mc-
No, he won more.
Did he?
Yeah. Kyle could get there, but
He had McNabb.
think
I
he won
mean,
it.
longer.
I think he won
He
the
had a
division like
quarterback.
5 straight years or something.
True. Let's end on
Trey Lance
Brock
could have
real.
been McNabb. We didn't talk Trey Lance. I know we'll go, Sam. I know
He's
we
gone.
Don't need to talk
He's
Trey.
gone.
We
I
don't
don't
need to
want to talk
Trey.
Wiseman. I don't want to talk Lance.
Yeah,
It's
fair
over.
enough. All right, all right.
Same conversation, Sam.
It's the same.
It is the same one.
It's the same.
Uh,
It's the same.
yeah. But
Joey Bart.
we've danced around it. Obviously, I don't want to get into it too hard. Where are you with Brock? Like, how bullish are you on this whole situation? How skeptical are you? You're kind of playing it down the middle so far. The first 20 minutes we're talking.
On what?
I don't know. Do you feel like confident with him? With him as their quarterback? Like, how much are you buying the 8-game run at the end of the
Drew
year?
Brees, baby.
How much do you feel about this going forward, or is it still very much
I think it's
this
50-50.
is
Yeah,
a Kyle
it's-
Shanahan? Like, I don't know. Could,
We got a
could
long
be Brian
way to go.
Hoyer and two.
We
Okay.
have
50-50 what? 50-50
I don't-
what? 50-50 what?
50-50 plays start 17 games this year. Like 50-50 Kyle doesn't bench him for Darnold at some point. Like
Wow.
he has to keep
Oh God.
he's only played 8 games as he has to keep playing well to keep this job. I think Kyle, I've talked to multiple people about this, and I've had multiple people like when I'm out at Niners practice, I think I'm on the extreme end of this. Every person I say this to thinks this is too extreme. That Kyle has more confidence in Brock than what I say. I think he has confidence in Brock. I think Kyle is very intrigued with Darnold. I think it's understandable when you watch Darnold practice and when you watch him play preseason games. He's extremely talented. Like his arm is, I didn't think it would be as good as it is. Greg Papa, hold on, let me bring him in here. While you're laughing at me
That was
for my
Sam
Darnold
laughing,
takes.
not me. That was Sam laughing, not me. Keep going. Keep going.
So
I didn't want to go down this route.
I think here's what you have to understand. I think Kyle would have drafted him the year they got Garoppolo. The Niners would have drafted him. They were winless when they got Jimmy. They were going to be in position to 2 winless teams would have coin flipped for the first pick, the Niners and the Browns. It wouldn't have mattered. They wouldn't have taken Baker. They would have taken Darnold. Now he's finally got him. He doesn't care. Like I was saying this to somebody the other day, the way people are like, well, Lance hasn't played. We've seen 55 games of Darnold. Kyle looked at it the opposite way. He looked at it like, I've seen Lance for 2 years. I've never had Darnold. Darnold's a free agent after this year. I think he's going to want to see him. It doesn't mean he's going to put him on the field just out of nowhere, but like Brock has to play well. Doesn't mean Brock throws 3 picks and it's over. I'm not saying that. I think they legitimately love Brock, like the guy, everything he's done, he's earned, all that stuff. But I think Kyle thinks Darnold could be really good, and he's just got a guy there if Brock isn't great. So I think Brock's got to keep it up, and keep it up's not fair, Andy. Like 13 touchdowns, 3 picks. It's not, that's an MVP. So he doesn't have to be that guy. But yeah, man, I think he's really good. I think he's better than he's not Mullins or Beathard or Hoyer, but that's not some
Sure.
big take by me. You know, he's a legitimate
I want
player.
to read something out. By the way, I'm all in on Brock. I can't stop laughing at Sam laughing about Darnold. I want to read something out. Here are the QBs drafted in the 2018 NFL draft. QBs. Number 1, Baker Mayfield. Number 3 overall, Sam Darnold. Number 7 overall, Josh Allen. And then number 10, Josh Rosen. So 3 busts and one good quarterback, one great quarterback.
I really thought Josh Rosen had a chance.
Kyler took his job, and then Caleb was going to take Kyler's job. So it's hilarious how that works. Josh Allen, if he was drafted by Kyle Shanahan, does he get traded in his third season?
Well, no, I mean that team. He's on a
He
team
would've
where he
played.
has
He
to
would've
play. On
played.
that.
Yeah.
That team was bad. So
yeah.
The real question is like, is it worse for Kyle to have not drafted a quarterback, or would it have been worse for him to draft Darnold that year and pass? Like with the Josh Allen thing, you're like, well, you know, we evaluated him, but ultimately we had Jimmy. Like you can get away. You weren't drafting a quarterback that year.
This is
But you
pure
should've
butterfly effect right here. We're like,
Totally, yeah.
what happens if they never get Jimmy, never win the last 5 games, get Darnold into a 2-14 team, and build it up sustainably that way? You know,
You never get Bosa. I mean, the irony of it all is they did break the mold, and you don't have him now anyway. So when they drafted Trey did break the mold. They just picked one of the worst years in a quarterback draft to trade up. Fields wouldn't have been the answer. I don't think. Mac would not would not have been the answer.
No.
So
Zach
they picked an
Wilson.
awful year to do it.
Everyone
Zach Wilson,
sucked
no,
that year.
Trevor Lawrence
except
good.
the number 1 guy. And it's just like any other. It's just like the NBA draft. The gap between the first pick and the second pick sometimes is so massive in some of these drafts.
Yeah.
And when it comes to quarterback, the gap is just huge between 1 and 2 and 2 and 3 sometimes.
Yeah.
Mike McGlinchey, by the way, Niners drafted at 9 in that same draft. Mike
5-year
McGlinchey.
starter.
Niners great. Yeah. Niners great.
Being as Nick Bosa is unsigned, it's worth noting the Niners have still not extended a first-round pick in the Kyle Shanahan era. Let's see if that holds up.
Because Armstead wasn't their pick
Correct.
because they didn't draft.
None of his picks have been extended. We're all assuming Bosa will. I mean, he will be.
Okay.
but like, you know, you run through it. It's Solomon Thomas, Reuben Foster, Mike McGlinchey, Trey Lance.
Sure.
Forgetting someone.
Ayuk is going to be
Ayuk.
maybe if he's not traded, or maybe Debo's traded.
Sure.
They haven't
but
had
you
a
still
first round
have
pick
to-
the last 2 years.
Yeah.
Right. It's Trey Lance times 3. I'm forgetting someone in that mix, but we'll end it here. Guy, we appreciate you. Anything you want to plug before you get out here?
Kinlaw.
Kinlaw still hasn't been extended. Just hanging out.
Breakout player. No, he's healthy. He's healthy. Best shape of his life. He's locked in.
We're not going to talk about USA Lithuania.
Oh, we did that before you got on.
Okay.
We didn't.
You want to drop a take?
No,
got a take?
no, we don't. Not for no, take on that.
I'm always ready.
I appreciate
All
you, guy.
Thank you, guy.
Good seeing you guys. Thanks for having me.
Good seeing you as always.